everyone. Thank you so much for joining a very, very special episode of our Detection Engineering Dispatch series, coming to you live from the San Francisco Bay Area here. As I mentioned, we're wrapping up a really incredible conference, 2024 RSA, which has been an amazing week here for us, filled with a lot of great conversation, a lot of great parties, right? A lot of great workshops, right? And coming up here very shortly, and Alicia Key's performance as well in a couple of hours. So very, very excited about that. I am Alex. I'm going to be hosting your dispatch content consisting of all things detection engineering related, hot topics, use cases, and workshops, which we're actually due for one here really, really soon. So if you enjoy our content and want to stay in the loop, right, please subscribe to our email list and join us here live on Zoom bi-weekly, or you can catch the replays on our YouTube channel. So today I am joined with a very esteemed customer of AmbiLogic, Ryan Fitch, SVP at a large financial institution, ranked top 20 in the US, I believe. We are going to be discussing his team's journey with us, but also navigating a crew of many other players like Splunk, Cribble, CrowdStrike, more. So Ryan, thank you so much for joining us. I always like to ask and start off with how you got into the industry. So if you'd love to tell us a little bit about yourself.
My background really came up through a network operations center, a NOC, what seems like 100 years ago. So I did a lot of shift work, working as a NOC technician. I was always curious about supporting systems, and eventually worked my way through administering those things, and then furthering education and moving into building systems and leading teams. I've had a number of technology roles, enterprise architect, all sorts of fun stuff, always really data related, data centric. And then my joke is that I got into cybersecurity to get a good night's sleep. So I sort of worked in a chaotic environment, and this was a much better job. Because of all my data and NOC background, I was pretty well oriented around helping develop fusion centers and SOCs and operating in those environments. And then when the opportunity at Moody's came along to build a fusion center, I just couldn't say no.
I love that. So you've got an entire team, right, of protecting, securing, of monitoring an entire infrastructure of all of it, right? Windows, Linux, everything. You're implementing security tooling in your environment. You're helping shape how analysts should go about detecting your threats. So as a leader now, what are those challenges that you're constantly running into?
The technology sprawl and the rate of change, just how quick our business partners move, how complex our business is. I don't think I'm alone in that. And
No,
it's hard to get these tools deployed, make sure they're operating correctly, understanding threat intelligence, threat model, per thing. And then really starting from scratch, it was very tough to go from no detections to getting to where a suitable baseline would be for us. And I'm really happy that AmbiLogic was able to help us get there.
So I want to hone in on some of that. It seems to have been some architectural headaches or complications there. Decision catalysts, right? What were some of the key factors and challenges that prompted your organization to adopt the multi-data lake strategy that we support, right?
Yeah.
Love to start from the beginning, right? What were those first few things that you saw that made you want to take matters right into your own hands?
I'd say just coming to grips with the scale of the amount of data that we need to process, and then really bumping into needing to use specialized or appropriate data technology for certain use cases. We're well past the days of just dump everything into Splunk and then run a search there. The data volumes and the complexity of the analysis that we need to perform is going to require some specialized tooling that may not be available everywhere. So we're getting into needing to decouple things. And then some of it was driven by our business, right? There were opportunities to be in multiple cloud providers that were going to be really beneficial to the business. And pretty quickly we could see that it may not be a great idea to always backhaul this data to one cloud provider or one SIEM, and maybe it's better off to be aggregated in place. and analyzed. And I'm really happy that we're able to pull that off with AnvalLogic.
That alone has been coming up so much just this week, right? It has just become so abundantly clear that the monolithic like architecture approach of the SIEM, like those traditional days, is just not equipped to handle the volume of how much data that we're producing year on year. It's growing year on year, and it complicates, like you said, the detection of many very, very key security use cases. And I know so many people are following some of these same challenges. So what would you say were those key data sources that you prioritized, right, to support these key use cases, this key like threat detection?
Sure. We have all the technology in the world. We have everything here, but we have some really high volume data sources that are also super common in the industry. Windows event logs, PowerShell logs, firewall logs, and then something that I was really excited to actually start to analyze that we couldn't before were the CrowdStrike FDR logs. So it's a high volume data source, multiple terabytes a day. Couldn't really pull it off in our traditional system. And for this year, that was one of our big strategic objectives, was to pull in the AnvalLogic managed Snowflake and migrate some of those workloads, out of Splunk and add this new rich data source, and then get these wonderful new detections that, I don't think we would have been able to pull off on our own.
That is so great to hear. Migrating, these high volumetrically high data sources that would have been very costly in Splunk, we're seeing, 80-90% of the cost even. So it's just a no-brainer. It's crazy to me that organizations are still, paying that much. There's so much more things you could be doing, right, with all that extra cash that would make so much more impact in your security program, right? So it's pretty crazy, but it's very real. Is there a way that Ryan, did you measure the success of this in terms of the effectiveness or maybe operational efficiency?
Oh yeah, definitely. So we're workload licensed in Splunk, and we have spent a lot of time making sure we understand how much our detections cost, even at a per query basis.
Mhm.
And it's really easy to compare what's going on in Snowflake. It's already paid off. Like we're already seeing savings and being able to reinvest in new capabilities. It's really been exciting.
That is really great to hear. Have you maybe invested that back into your team in other ways, would you say?
Yeah, I certainly would. Like when we were able to renew our Splunk this year, because we were able to move some of our workload over to Snowflake, and there was some significant margin savings. We're able to actually grow our Splunk through adding the ITSI module. And then we're
Mhm.
spending a lot of time modeling our security controls for things that are really hard to detect, like, adaptive threshold minutia changes that could be really impactful to the business, but are maybe hard to pick out. So it's really nice that we're able to take those savings and invest it in making sure that our security controls are operating as effectively as they can be. So just a win-win all the way around.
Which is really great. Like all of that was shown after the fact. All of those were great outcomes, but even going to an approach like this is a huge thing to take on, right? Was there any challenges during the transition or convincing, right, someone with this
Oh,
approach, the culture of it during the transition even?
Uh, culture a little bit. Honestly, the biggest challenge was that we were so effective that I mean, and just to sort of set some of the scale, like before we had AnvalLogic in the door, I think we had maybe 80 detections, which is probably what a lot of SOCs are running. It's just pretty small if you look at the whole of the MITRE attack framework. We run over 1,000 now.
Wow.
So that huge volume increase and increase in breadth of the types of attacks that we detect and the ecosystems that these things happen in was pretty challenging for my poor SOC folks who had to keep up. Maybe they weren't familiar with certain cloud providers that we hadn't used before, hadn't seen things before. But the framework and the way that AnvalLogic lets us quickly onboard stuff, quickly deploy new rules, made that part go really smooth. And then the tuning insights helped us manage it. It was pretty impressive to go literally 10x in volume and threat detection, still save money in our SIM, keep our SOC happy. It wasn't for the faint of heart. And then the real like cultural change is how much better we're able to leverage a threat informed defense model of speaking in MITRE.
Mhm.
It's made it easier to work with auditors, our engineering teams, even our customers.
And you feel much more control over how much you improved your stock maturity. You feel like that you have them better prepared for the future of
Uh,
enterprise security.
Definitely, and it's objective and quantifiable. I have a maturity score. I have an understanding of where my MITRE coverage and gaps are. I have validation with a different tool, Attack IQ. We have attack simulation, so I can, as part of an end-to-end detection lifecycle, turn this on, validate that the detection actually works. It's really comforting. We're so far from the days of, there's this new breach or new threat, are we covered for it, and not having really any way to answer it. It's really great having a common language to speak about detections.
That is so incredible to hear. You mentioned a couple of the different features that you're loving about Anvil, the tuning insights. Any other specific features that you like, particularly maybe around the latest thing that you may have available that might have
I
been exposed in the last few weeks?
Yeah, I got a sneak peek of that yesterday, and I've been playing around with it quite a bit this morning. I really am excited for the automated investigations.
Mhm.
It's just this perfect sweet spot, and it's something that I think is going to help my analysts come to grips when we're adding new things, new technologies, new detections, helping close that gap between what is this? Is there you know typical surrounding events, all these initial steps that need to be taken with this really great threat context of why we should care, how we should go about investigating and remediating. Really, really exciting, really helpful stuff. I can't wait till that matures just a little bit. Maybe we get out of beta, and then I can get it incorporated into our workflows.
That was something that was coming up a lot at RSA this week. Was the most frequently asked question last year on AI. How are you using AI within your stack? Came up a lot again this year, and I just had to advise, like, take very careful like retrospect as to where vendors are using AI within their stack and within their team, right? If they just act like all of the Python AI developers, right, that were building their models, not the best message that it sends to the kind of caliber of person that you need to attract to keep stay as an AI leader in the space, right? And then how are you using AI? Is it to reduce the monotone, like repetitive task within the SOC? Because it should be, right? That's how we all can get better within the SOC. The analysts are trying to find ways to do their job also more easier, faster, smarter. So that's how it should be used. But the real question is it actually being used that way? Is it actually proving useful?
Yeah, I think it will. We've been cautiously tiptoeing into the space, using it for summarizing text, translating languages. Right, we operate in a bunch of countries, a lot of different languages. It's really challenging. This in particular, this investigation piece really feels like a natural extension of something that we're already doing today with like drill down searches or SOAR playbooks, and it's really great to be able to speak to our data in natural language and have an opinionated investigating or triaging an event.
Super great to hear. I love that you were able to make use of all of the data that wasn't able to go into your Splunk deployment today. You're making use of it. You're supporting threat detection. You maybe, but I'd go as far as saying, oh, I'd go as far as saying you were able to decrease costs and improve threat coverage by almost the same margin.
Yeah, absolutely. It's I was looking back at what we pulled off from last year, right? 10x increase in threat detection through some other initiatives like ensuring agent coverage and onboarding acquisitions. We're able to 4x increase in the number of hosts that we're monitoring, and we were still able to reduce our spend and repurpose that for something else that was really going to give us a leg up. It was really a great achievement, and thrilled that we're able to pull it off.
And we're very excited to continue partnering with you. And I also wanted to mention, and this was all without having to rip out Splunk. That's often a non-starter for many organizations. You probably have so many processes wrapped around there that you've built for years, and even people outside of the security are using Splunk, probably.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. We love Splunk. It's core to many parts of our operation. Really, what we're just trying to do is optimize and use the very best parts of it, and certain things that are turning into more of a commodity, or we want to use some different data technology for cost optimization or effectiveness. We've been able to leverage Anvil and I like the neutral approach in that we are able to still send stuff to Splunk, send stuff to anything else that we want to bring in. It's a perfect independent decoupling. It's really been effective.
So we talked about all the great things, right? All the positive impact and the great parts about your journey. But if you were reflecting back, was there any lessons learned or things you would have done differently or things that may not have gone that well?
I would have done Snowflake earlier.
Oh, okay.
It's just the performance and the overhead of managing the corpus of all of our detections has been a lot easier with Snowflake than it was with Anvil. Speaking directly with Splunk, it's just a lot easier I mean, I have one detection engineer at a pretty sizable enterprise. I
Oh, wow.
anything I could do to reduce overhead and make that person successful, I'm all for it.
Well, you may have one detection engineer, but you have a team as an extended, our Forge Purple team that's building detections for your Snowflake environment, for your
Yeah.
Splunk environment, for your Linux environment, your Linux coverage, things like that. They're building detections, they're replicating behaviors across our infrastructure, and they're recommending them to you based so context aware of the data feeds that you have, and but still leave it up for you to decide whether you want to bring those back into the org.
Yeah, and with Snowflake, we're a lot more comfortable with auto deploying those, right? I'm not worried about performance overhead or impact. We don't need to customize as much. If I could have done it all over again, Snowflake early, Snowflake often.
So you're saying like very low maintenance as it relates to having to, use Snowflake in addition to Anvil.
Yep.
Good. That's awesome. I have only have one more question here before I open it up to anyone in the crowd that wants to ask you a question. Ryan, I want to ask, what advice would you offer to security operation leaders like yourself considering a similar transition of this decoupled strategy?
For me, it's focus on your desired security outcomes, and then kind of work back how you want to get there. Probably 2 years ago, maybe a little bit more, I really wanted to be MITRE oriented as much as we could possibly get to. And working back from that requirement or that vision, it was pretty easy to pick out the vendors that were really leading the charge. And Anvil was one of them. And then really getting Cribble to be the transport for how we actually move our data around was really key and really strategic. And but with this, all of my tools that have made me really happy and are operating really effectively. Hope other folks are willing to take it on.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for saying that. This has been an incredible session for us. Is there any questions from the chat from our 18 participants that they may have for Ryan before we let him get back to his very, very busy day?
We can wait for some questions to come in, but since Ryan has access to the Anvil platform, I actually have a question for you.
Mhm.
So it's May, it's Mental Health Awareness Month, and we actually sponsored an event this week at RSA with Mind Over Cyber that focuses on the mental well-being of security practitioners. And this is a question I've asked multiple times, but I'm curious in your perspective. We have the SOC maturity score, right? And it's a really great tool to understand where you are, to report up, but to also, I think, empower your practitioners. So I'm curious, do you think there's ways to use the maturity score to make sure that your practitioners are focusing on the right tasks, they're working on the right things, and to kind of have a positive feedback loop with them that, hey, like what you guys are working on, it's impacting the line that we're looking at, and we're reporting that up. And also a twofold to that question is, what do you think about just the positive reinforcement and feedback loop for practitioners, and if that is important?
I do think it's important, and that does lend itself pretty well to mental health and empowerment. Feeling that you're making progress, that you have control over your domain, and you're not sort of wallowing in uncertainty, is definitely going to make people feel better. When we think about rolling through the threat informed defense line in Anvil of where's your infrastructure, what data do they have, what threat actors are you worried about, what tactics are you concerned with, I love the recommendations. I love pop over to the MITRE framework inside of AnvalLogic and see the little star. And then even sort of on the other side, from the published threat intel that we receive from AnvalLogic, it's great to see you're partially covered. You need to do this, that, and the other. It's incredibly actionable and removes a lot of the uncertainty and really helps, when you're looking at, a nearly infinite complex space, where do you even start? AnvalLogic's done a great job of helping us prioritize.
Awesome. Thank you for that answer. And I'll ask one more follow-up to that. For those that might not have AnvalLogic, do you have advice for security leaders on how they should give that, positive feedback or that reinforcement loop to their practitioners, or set the tone for the week to make sure they are prioritizing the right things? Do you have any advice for leaders?
Adopt a threat-informed defense. The space is huge. There are thousands and thousands of things you need to detect. You really don't have that many resources either in time or throughput. So pick something that's important, come to accept that you can't do it all, and then be honest and allow for freedom of expression. I think being able to say when things are going well or things are going bad, and being honest with yourselves and a team goes a long way to drive happiness.
Awesome. Love it. I think we have a
One more
question.
question. And the question in the chat, I was going to say, Mike Simonton just joined us this week on the East Coast. With all these detections, do they still manage cases in the traditional sense? How many cases do they see weekly or monthly as to additional detections?
Sure. I think we get about 1,000 tickets in our SOAR platform a week. Pretty decent volume. I really like sort of the two-stage approach we can take in AnvalLogic, where things can warn or alert. We can accumulate risk around a COI user, COI host. We're religious about tuning tables all over the place. So we have a lot of knobs we can turn, and tuning is, you can kind of think of the detection engineering workload with AnvalLogic is going from constantly developing detections to really focusing a lot more on tuning. That part's gone, I think, fairly well. Like we have a really good process there. The SOC's not overwhelmed. Sometimes, like last year, we had a lot of spikes, but we also added everything. And we're kind of over that hurdle, and it's not going to be as bad going forward.
Yeah, I think that question stems from like more money, more problems, right? More detections, but maybe more alerts, more tuning having to be done.
Yeah, and as far as whether it's traditional or not, a lot of this, because we're good at operating our SIEM and good at operating our tools, these events come in fully enriched. Our SOAR tool has tons of response and investigative actions. I think where you might really see some change is that new beta automated investigation piece. I think is really interesting, and that could change the workflow a little bit, where we punt back to the AI for guidance, or maybe even auto closure if it thinks it's benign. Right, this could be really exciting.
Absolutely. We're very, very excited for the next generation of Monty Copilot. The team worked really, really hard to put it together for the RSA showcase. So very proud of the team and the work that they were able to do in such a short timeline.
Yeah.
And one more question, Ryan, do you like Alicia Keys?
Well, who doesn't?
We actually have one more question in chat also, Alex.
Oh, we do. I didn't see it.
From Tony.
What is the one hurdle you and the team hit that you can share with the others to look out for as you migrated and transformed? The one hurdle. Well, he didn't seem to say any hurdles that there were.
Yeah, AnvalLogic's a young and growing company, and we're a young and growing fusion center. I wouldn't say any hurdles, but it was neat to partner with someone that was on a maturity curve or similar journey to us, and not everything worked perfectly immediately, but the partnership was great, and I have a lot of trust in the engineering team, and it's been really cool to see these little obstacles that we run into and how they get solved, and how the partnership has grown over the years.
And Jeanette has another one. Ryan, what is something that you love about the detection engineering community, or anything you'd like to see more of happen?
I do love the openness and understanding of like a societal good or communal defense. Detection engineering practitioners are so open with what works, with what doesn't. It kind of reminds me of older open source stuff like in the 90s with Linux. It's just really neat to be a part of a thriving community of people that are generally interested in improving society. What I'd like to see more of, I really see an end state state of, SQL and MITRE of driving these really common things into a commodity like Snowflake, I think could be a real game changer there of here's all the threats, here's the most efficient way to search them. And then, the enrichment and tuning is really the secret sauce, for all of these organizations.
So true what you said about the open source community. But thinking about what went down a couple months ago with the XZ, it's just so heartbreaking that they're actively targeting, someone that has to put in so much work to keep up libraries like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. How does Anvrlogic leverage threat intelligence into new use cases?
I'd say it's baked in, and the platform is entirely oriented around threat intelligence and threat-informed defense. It's one of my favorite pieces of it because you're oriented around MITRE tactic and techniques, and you have a really objective way to think about threats. It's not that hard for a threat intel analyst to produce something and say these were the tactics or techniques that were in use. I love that we're constantly getting new threat intel, new suggestions for things to detect for what's actually happening in the news. It lines up really well with the ask that I get from my customers and my leadership and risk partners of, this thing happened, are we covered? It feels so good to objectively know if we are or not. And those types of questions were really hard to answer before.
And I would even go as far as saying that it's so well done in the sense that it helps you a lot with the operationalizing aspect of it, because I've seen so many threat detection libraries that have a kind of service of offering a mapping to the MITRE attack framework, trying to play MITRE bingo, as one of our leaders would call it, but
Yeah.
they don't go as far as saying, well, here is the data feed that you need, and actually also the the MITRE data component. And this is exactly what you need to operationalize this rule, whether it's on a discrete event or whether it's chaining multiple discrete events in an interesting way on a correlated property. And that will, give you the behavioral techniques to address this headline threat, XYZ. I really love that aspect of it. I think that's one of the reasons why I joined Anvrlogic. But we are at the top, and I know you're really busy, Ryan, and I just wanted to say thank you so much for joining Detection Engineering Dispatch. We look forward to continue partnering with you and supporting your deployment and keep thriving together as a team. And you can always count on us for anything you need with the detection engineering community.
Excellent. If anyone has any questions about Anvrlogic after, reach out to me on LinkedIn. Always happy to chat.
Awesome. Thank you, everyone. Stay tuned for the next session in a couple of weeks. We're going to be joined with Kennedy Torka. He is a cloud detection engineer. We're going to be covering a part 2 on navigating cloud security detections. Have a wonderful rest of your week. Safe travels if you're flying home from RSA.